Boston minister Harold Okenga, in the middle of the 20th century, began one of his sermons with the following statement: "I see on the horizon ominous clouds of battle which spell annihilation unless we are willing to run in a pack. This is the time, this is the day for the offensive." They are Roman Catholicism, theological modernism, secularism, and political liberalism. We are standing in the most tremendous danger of all. Already a revolution has taken place in our nation. Whenever the major part of the business of the nation is being done by the government rather than by private interest, capitalism ceases its functioning. The crisis is greater than any of us realize. Okenga's fears reflect our modern-day conservative movement's fears of big government. These fears began during the Reagan era, especially in the lead up to the campaign. The emergence of Billy Graham and the establishment of Jerry Falwell's moral majority in 1979 were big factors that helped form the moral principles of this modern-day conservative movement. However, Matthew Avery Sutton, in his 2012 article, "Was FDR the Antichrist? The Birth of Fundamentalist Anti-Liberalism in a Global Age?" was published in the Journal of American History. He argues that this fundamentalist movement actually began with opposition to FDR in the 1930s. Another pastor at the time, William Ward Ayer, who was a pastor in New York City's Calvary Baptist Church, also shared some of Harold Okenga's fears. He states, "The inroads of wild socialist theories through the power of organized minorities in government are creating a cancerous condition in America. Not only is there surreptitious entrenching of radicals in high places in our government life, but a tendency is manifest even on the part of high officials to smear any who call attention to these cancerous adhesions to our body politic. It is not boasting to declare that evangelical Christianity has the America of our forefathers to save. Millions of evangelical Christians, if they had a common voice and a common meeting place, would exercise under God an influence that would save American democracy." So, what is it about Franklin Roosevelt and his presidency in the 1930s that Harold Okenga and William Ward Ayer attribute to fears of him being the Antichrist? What is it about the way he led the nation during this time, especially when compared to figures like Mussolini and like Hitler, who were also rising at the time, that led them to fear that FDR was this Antichrist? This came out of the notion of premillennialism. According to this idea of premillennialism, the current age will climax with the restoration of Jews to Palestine, the emergence of powerful empires in Rome, Russia, and the Far East, and then war. Out of this chaos, a new leader will appear promising peace and security. Unwilling or unable to recognize that this leader is actually the prophesied Antichrist, most political and religious leaders around the world will cede their sovereignty and independence to him through an international agency. These fears, these prophecies come from books of the Bible such as Daniel, Ezekiel, and Revelation, speaking about the end times of the earth. And so this theory of premillennialism was gaining popularity in the late 1800s and in the early 1900s. And as this fundamentalist movement was growing in America, premillennialism was growing along with it. And so, with some of these prophecies, the restoration of the Jews to Palestine. Many fundamentalists saw this in Hitler's passing of the Nuremberg Laws and his expulsion of Jews from Germany. They saw his persecution of the Jews in the 1930s as a reflection of some of those end times prophecies. And similarly, the emergence of powerful empires in Rome were reflected in Mussolini's fascist movement in Italy, and is being referred to as Il Duce, the leader, and trying to bring about the glorious return of the Roman Empire. In Russia, there was also prophesied the emergence of powerful empires in Russia, and of course with the Bolshevik Revolution in the 1920s, that was seen as being a reflection of the emergence of powerful leadership in Russia. So when it comes to Franklin Roosevelt, he was seen by fundamentalists in the 1930s as the American version of one of these powerful empires, particularly with his New Deal, which was a radical departure from the domestic policy of his predecessors in Coolidge and Herbert Hoover, who were much more conservative and relaxed. Similarly, as soon as Roosevelt took office, in addition to proposing massive government involvement in domestic affairs, he also reduced some of the moral reform that his predecessors had done, namely with the repeal of the 18th Amendment, the repeal of prohibition. They saw that as a massive step forward in government control and a massive step back in the morality of America. Finally, his court packing scheme was another thing that led American fundamentalists to believe that FDR was becoming a tyrant, similar to the likes of Hitler, Mussolini, and Joseph Stalin. So, the article concludes saying that fundamentalists in the 1930s, obsessed with matching up global crises with biblical prophecy, developed a powerful critique of New Deal liberalism. In an era when the Bible seemingly indicated that the end of time was rapidly approaching, with a global economic depression, wars and rumors of wars, the restoration of the Roman Empire, thousands of Jews trekking to Palestine, the growth of communism, and the rise of a strong nation-state in the United States, fundamentalists redefined their politics and established a foundation for the post-war evangelical surge. And again, the author, Matthew Sutton, he brings up the fundamentalist criticism of FDR in reference to the fact that that's where the evangelical movement of the Reagan era, and even up till today, the contemporary conservative movement, that's where it originated, was with fears of this president of the United States being the Antichrist. And that's something that in my own time I've seen reflected. I can remember the election of Barack Obama. There was lots of opposition to that and claiming that he was the Antichrist. The current president, Donald Trump, certainly receives lots of attention and lots of criticism from both sides. And some of the actions that he's taking, again, opposing certain Supreme Court justices and decisions, and trying to work towards the overthrow of some of these decisions and the overriding of Supreme Court position, it harkens back to some of those same fears that American fundamentalists had about FDR in the 1930s.